A brilliant black lawyer faces public humiliation when a biased judge dismisses her expertise in open court. But when she uncovers a past, ruling, he wrote, one that directly contradicts his current prejudice, she turns his own words into the weapon that exposes his hypocrisy and restores her dignity. In a stunning courtroom reversal, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Judge Richard Harrison leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. The courtroom was packed, attorneys, law students, reporters filling every bench. Maya Chen stood at the defense table, her emerald green blazer crisp against the dark wood. She held her notes steady despite the tremor running through her hands. Your Honor, precedent clearly establishes that evidence obtained without proper warrant authorization must be Ms. Chen. Judge Harrison's voice cut through her argument like a blade. Did you actually attend law school? The courtroom went silent. Someone in the back row coughed. Maya froze mid-sentence. Her mouth opened, then closed. Heat crawled up her neck. I'm sorry, Your Honor. It's a simple question. Harrison's eyes swept the gallery, inviting them into his performance. Because your understanding of Fourth Amendment jurisprudence seems rudimentary at best. Laughter rippled through the prosecution side. Quiet, contained but unmistakable. Maya's client, 17-year-old Marcus Thompson, stared at her from the defendant's chair. His eyes asked the question she couldn't answer. What just happened? The prosecutor, James Whitmore, adjusted his cobalt blue tie. His smirk was barely concealed. Maya's grip tightened on the podium edge. Her knuckles went pale against her brown skin. Every eye in the room watched her, waiting. Harvard Law, Your Honor, class of 2018. Her voice emerged steady somehow. With honors. Harrison made a show of flipping through papers. Perhaps you should defer to more experienced counsel on matters this complex. The words landed like stones. Maya felt them settle in her chest, heavy and cold. She'd prepared for this case for 3 months. Every citation memorized, every argument refined. None of it mattered now. 6 hours earlier, Maya's alarm had shattered the pre-dawn quiet at 5:30 a.m. She'd risen in her studio apartment, the city still dark beyond the window. Her morning routine was ritualistic. Coffee first, black, no sugar. Then the case files spread across her kitchen table like a paper battlefield. Marcus Thompson's file stared back at her. 17 years old, honor student, basketball scholarship pending at State University. Arrested for allegedly stealing electronics from a store he'd never entered. The evidence against him was tissue thin, a coerced statement. Security footage too grainy to identify anyone. But the prosecution had pushed forward anyway. Maya worked for the Riverside Legal Defense Fund, a non-profit that survived on grants and donated hours. They took the cases nobody else wanted, the clients the system had already decided were guilty. She joined straight out of law school, turning down 6-figure corporate offers. Her colleagues thought she was crazy. Her student loans agreed, but Maya hadn't gone to law school to defend pharmaceutical companies. She'd gone to defend people like Marcus. Like herself. Her phone buzzed. A text from her colleague Tanya. Good luck today. You've got this. Maya smiled despite her nerves. She pulled on her emerald green blazer, the one her grandmother had bought her for law school graduation. The fabric was worn at the elbows now, but Maya wore it to every important hearing. Armor, her grandmother had called it. Dress like you belong there because you do. Maya gathered her files and headed for the door. The courthouse was 30 minutes away. She wanted extra time to review her motion one final time. In her car, she practiced her opening statement. The words flowed smooth and confident in the empty vehicle. She knew this case backward and forward. Marcus deserved better than a rushed public defender, juggling 40 cases. He deserved someone who saw him as human, not a file number. Maya pulled into the courthouse, parking garage at 8:15. She checked her reflection in the rear view. Mirror. Professional, prepared, ready. She had no idea what was coming. The hearing began at Saint-Audou's shop. Judge Harrison entered with his usual theatrical flourish, black robes swirling. Maya rose with everyone else. All rise for the Honorable Judge Richard Harrison. Harrison settled into his chair with a sigh that suggested profound inconvenience. He scanned the courtroom, his gaze lingering on Maya for a half-second too long. Something cold touched her spine. Instinct, maybe. Warning. Matter of State versus Marcus Thompson, the clerk announced. Maya approached the podium. Maya Chen for the defense, Your Honor. We're here on a motion to suppress evidence obtained. Yes. I've read your motion. Harrison waved his hand dismissively. Though I must say, Miss Chen, your legal reasoning leaves much to be desired. Maya blinked. The motion had taken her 2 weeks to research and draft. Every citation was flawless. Your Honor, if I may explain the Fourth Amendment violations. The Fourth Amendment, Harrison chuckled, looking at the prosecutor. Mr. Whitmore, did you review this motion? Whitmore stood, buttoning his suit jacket. I did, Your Honor. The defense's arguments are without merit. The search was conducted with proper authorization. That's factually incorrect, Maya interjected. The warrant application failed to establish probable cause, and the affidavit contained— Ms. Chen. Harrison's voice hardened. I'm speaking to Mr. Whitmore. The courtroom stirred. A few attorneys exchanged glances. Maya felt heat rising in her chest. She forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly. Your Honor, with respect, I have a right to respond to— What you have is a responsibility to present competent arguments. Harrison leaned forward. Which brings me back to my original question. Where did you attend law school? There it was again. The question designed to humiliate. Maya's hands trembled. She clasped them together to still the shaking. Harvard Law, Your Honor. Harvard. Harrison repeated the word like it tasted sour. Well, they must have different standards these days. Laughter erupted from the prosecution table. Someone in the gallery snickered. Marcus turned to look at Maya, his young face crumbling with confusion and fear. Harrison smiled. Perhaps next time, Ms. Chen, you'll prepare more thoroughly. Motion denied. But, Your Honor, you haven't even heard denied. Next case, the gavel fell. The sound echoed through Maya like a gunshot. Maya didn't remember leaving the courtroom. Her legs moved automatically, carrying her down the hallway past concerned faces and curious stares. She pushed through the bathroom door. The space was mercifully empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the same harsh institutional hum as the courtroom. Maya gripped the edge of the sink, porcelain cold beneath her palms. Her reflection stared back. Professional blazer, hair pulled into a neat bun, makeup carefully applied, everything perfect on the surface, but her eyes betrayed her. They burned with unshed tears and suppressed rage. Did you actually attend law school? The words replayed in her mind like a broken record. The laughter that followed, the smirk on Whitmore's face, Harrison's casual cruelty. Maya had experienced prejudice before, the subtle kind, the surprised looks when she introduced herself as an attorney, the assumptions that she was a paralegal or clerk, the way opposing counsel directed questions to her white colleagues instead. But this was different. This was public humiliation, deliberate and calculated. She thought of Marcus sitting in that courtroom watching his lawyer get torn apart. What did that teach him about justice? About the system that held his future in its hands? Her grandmother's face surfaced in her memory. Eleanor Chen, who'd marched in Selma, who'd fought for desegregation in their small southern town, who'd taught Maya that dignity wasn't given, it was claimed. Don't let them see you cry, Eleanor had told her once. Save your tears for your pillow. In that courtroom you stand tall. Maya straightened slowly. She turned on the cold water and splashed her face. The shock of it cleared her head. Harrison had denied her motion without cause. That was grounds for appeal, maybe even grounds for something more. Maya dried her hands and checked her reflection one final time. The burning in her eyes had transformed into something sharper. Determination. Maya was 12 years old the first time she understood what justice meant her grandmother had taken her to the courthouse in their hometown. A civil rights memorial was being dedicated, a stone monument listing names of activists who'd fought for voting rights. Maya Chen's name was etched near the bottom. Maya had traced the letters with her small fingers, feeling the depth of the carving. "Why did you do it, Grandma?" she'd asked. Eleanor had knelt beside her, joints creaking. Her eyes held a distant fire. Because someone had to. Because silence is complicity. Inside the courthouse that day, they'd watched a trial. A young black man accused of robbery. The evidence was circumstantial. The defense attorney was overworked and underprepared. The jury had deliberated for 20 minutes. Guilty. Maya watched the defendant's mother collapse in the gallery, her wails filling the courtroom. She watched the man's face crumble. She watched injustice unfold in real time. "That's not right," Maya had whispered. "No," Eleanor agreed. "It's not. That's why we need people like you in there. Smart people, brave people. Me." Maya had been shocked. "You." Eleanor squeezed her hand. "You've got fire in you, baby girl. Don't waste it." From that moment, Maya's path had been set. She'd worked 2 jobs through college. She'd studied until her eyes burned. She'd graduated summa cum laude and earned a full scholarship to Harvard Law. Her grandmother had been there at graduation, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Proud of you doesn't even cover it," she'd whispered. Eleanor died 6 months later, a stroke, sudden and merciless. Maya had stood at her funeral in that emerald green blazer, promising to honor her legacy. To fight for the people the system forgot. Marcus Thompson was one of those people, a kid who'd been in the wrong place, with the wrong skin color at the wrong time. Maya had read his file a dozen times. He was a good student. He volunteered at community centers. He had dreams of playing college basketball, maybe going pro someday. One false accusation threatened to destroy it all. The charges would follow him forever, even if eventually dropped. Scholarship committees would see the arrest record. Employers would hesitate. The shadow would never lift, unless Maya could win. Unless she could prove the evidence against him was tainted, the arrest unlawful. But first she had to overcome Judge Richard Harrison. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by law books and laptop screens, the blue light washing her face pale. She'd started researching Judge Harrison at 10 p.m. Now it was past 2 a.m., and her coffee had gone cold. Harrison had been on the bench for 15 years. His record was mixed, some fair rulings, some questionable, but nothing that screamed overt bias. Maya scrolled through case after case, her eyes burning with exhaustion. There had to be something, some pattern, some precedent, some... She froze. The case title glowed on her screen, Martinez v. State Superior Court, 2009. Maya clicked the link. The ruling loaded slowly, her internet connection sluggish at this hour. Judge Richard Harrison had authored the opinion. It was an appeal from an attorney who'd been repeatedly questioned about her competence by a trial judge. Maya's hands trembled as she read Harrison's words. "A judge who questions counsel's qualifications without legitimate cause undermines the very integrity of our justice system. Attorneys admitted to practice have earned that right through rigorous examination and ethical standards. To suggest otherwise based on bias or prejudice is not only inappropriate, it constitutes judicial misconduct." Maya read it again. Then again. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. The hypocrisy was staggering. Harrison had written these words. He'd defended attorney competence against judicial bias. He'd called such behavior misconduct, and then he'd done exactly that to Maya in open court. She scrolled further. Harrison's ruling had been cited in multiple subsequent cases. It was considered precedent on judicial ethics and attorney treatment. His own precedent. His own words. His own standard. Maya's mind raced. This wasn't just ironic, it was actionable. Harrison had violated his own published judicial standard. She could use this. She printed the ruling, her hands shaking. The pages emerged warm from the printer, Harrison's words damning in black and white. Maya held them to her chest. For the first time since that humiliating hearing, she smiled. Eleanor's voice echoed in her memory. When they show you who they are, believe them. Then show them who you are. Maya had her weapon now. The question was whether she had the courage to use it. Outside her window, the city was beginning to wake. Dawn light crept across her kitchen table, illuminating the Martinez ruling like a revelation. Maya Chen had made her decision. The courtroom felt different when Maya entered the next morning. Colder somehow, despite the same recycled air and fluorescent lighting. Judge Harrison was already seated, reviewing paperwork with apparent disinterest. He didn't look up when Maya approached the defense table. Marcus was there, his mother beside him in the gallery. Mrs. Thompson's eyes met Maya's with desperate hope. "Don't look at me like that," Maya thought. "Not yet. All parties ready?" Harrison asked, still not looking up. "Your Honor," Maya stood. "I'd like to request a brief sidebar before we proceed." Harrison sighed heavily. "Is this really necessary, Miss Chen?" "I believe so, Your Honor." He waved her forward with obvious irritation. Whitmore joined them at the bench, curiosity flickering across his features. Maya kept her voice low and professional. "Your Honor, I've researched additional precedent regarding yesterday's proceedings, specifically your ruling in Martinez v. State Superior Court." Harrison's pen stopped mid-scratch. He looked up slowly. "I don't see how a 15-year-old case is relevant here. It establishes standards for judicial conduct regarding attorney competence," Maya said carefully. "Standards that may apply to this proceeding." Whitmore looked between them, confused. "What's this about?" "Nothing." Harrison's voice had hardened. "Ms. Chen is wasting the court's time with irrelevant precedent. Your Honor, with respect, the Martinez case dealt with entirely different circumstances. It has no bearing on this matter." Harrison's jaw clenched. "Are we clear?" Maya held his gaze. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps. "Or fear, crystal clear, Your Honor." "Good, return to your table." Maya walked back, her heart hammering. She'd shown her hand. Harrison knew she'd found his ruling. The question was whether he cared. The morning proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Harrison denied 2 more of Maya's objections without explanation. Each denial felt arbitrary, punitive, but something had shifted. Harrison avoided her eyes now. His responses were clipped, defensive, Whitmore noticed. "Your Honor seems distracted today." Maya said nothing. She simply watched Harrison, memorizing every uncomfortable gesture, every averted glance. He was worried. That was enough for now. During the lunch recess, Maya's phone buzzed. "Tanya, how's it going?" Maya typed back. "About to get much worse. Or much better." Hard to say. She stared at the Martinez ruling in her briefcase. Her grandmother's blazer felt heavier than usual, weighted with history and expectation. Eleanor had taught her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. Maya closed her eyes and steadied her breathing. When court resumed, everything would change. The afternoon. Session began at 2:00 p.m. The gallery had filled during lunch. Word had spread about the tension between Maya and Harrison. Whitmore presented his closing arguments. Standard prosecution fare, painting Marcus as guilty based on circumstantial evidence and coerced testimony. Maya took notes mechanically. None of it mattered if the illegally obtained evidence stood. "Ms. Chen," Harrison said when Whitmore finished, "your closing." Maya stood. She approached the podium with deliberate slowness, her movements careful and controlled. "Your Honor, before I proceed, I must again address the motion to suppress. The evidence in question was obtained in clear violation." "Ms. Chen." Harrison's voice cut like ice. "I've ruled on that motion. Move on." "Your Honor, you've ruled without proper consideration of the constitutional issues involved. Without allowing me to fully present, counsel, you're trying my patience. And you, Your Honor, are violating established judicial procedure." Maya's voice remained calm, professional. But something fierce burned beneath the surface. The courtroom went absolutely still. Someone's phone buzzed in the silence, loud as a gunshot. Harrison's face darkened. "Excuse me? You've denied multiple motions without explanation. You've interrupted my arguments repeatedly. You've questioned my competence without cause." Maya's hands gripped the podium. "These actions violate your own published standards regarding judicial conduct." Whitmore stood. "Your Honor, this is inappropriate." "Sit down, Mr. Whitmore." Harrison's eyes never left Maya. "Ms. Chen, you're on very thin ice. I have grounds for a formal recusal motion." "Your Honor." Maya's voice didn't waver. "Based on demonstrated bias and your failure to meet the standards you yourself established in Martinez versus State Superior Court." The courtroom erupted. Gasps and whispers filled the space like wildfire. Harrison's face drained of color. He gripped his gavel so hard his knuckles went white. "You're filing a recusal motion? Against me?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Effective immediately." Marcus stared at Maya with wide eyes. His mother's hand covered her mouth in shock. Harrison leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "The consequences." "I understand perfectly, Your Honor." Maya met his gaze without flinching. "I'm claiming my dignity and my client's right to fair treatment. This proceeding is adjourned." Harrison's gavel fell like thunder. "Bailiff, clear the courtroom." But Maya didn't move. She stood at that podium, her grandmother's emerald green blazer a shield, her spine straight as iron. Judge Richard Harrison fled to his chambers. The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing through the stunned courtroom. Maya gathered her files slowly. Her hands shook now, adrenaline flooding her system. Tanya pushed through the crowd. "Maya, what just happened?" Maya looked at her friend, at Marcus. Are the reporters already typing furiously on their phones? "I just ended my career," she said quietly. "Or started it. We'll see." The courthouse hallway felt like a gauntlet. Maya walked through clusters of whispering attorneys, their eyes following her like searchlights. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from colleagues, emails from reporters, missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She silenced it all. Back at her office, Maya closed the door and leaned against it. The silence was deafening after the courtroom chaos. Her desk phone rang. The firm's senior partner, Robert Davidson. "Maya, my office now." The walk down the hall took forever. Davidson's door was already open when she arrived. He sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. "Sit," Maya sat. Her grandmother's blazer suddenly felt too tight. "Do you understand what you've done?" Davidson's voice was carefully neutral. "You've accused a sitting judge of bias. Filed a recusal motion in open court. He violated his own judicial standards." "I don't care," Davidson cut her off. "The legal community is small, Maya. Judges talk. You've just painted a target on this firm's back." Maya's stomach dropped. "Robert, I had grounds." "Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. But there are ways to handle these things. Quiet ways. Political ways." He removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "You went nuclear. Your client deserves an attorney who can practice law in this state next month." Davidson's tone softened slightly. "I'm getting calls already. Other judges asking questions. This could follow you everywhere." Maya felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd worked for, law school, passing the bar, building her reputation, balanced on a knife's edge. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Tanya. "People are talking." "Be careful." Another from a law school classmate. "What were you thinking?" Maya stared at the Martinez ruling printout on Davidson's desk. Harrison's words mocked her from the page. Outside the window, the city moved on. Traffic flowed. People lived their lives. The world didn't stop for one lawyer's gamble. Eleanor's voice whispered through her memory. "Dignity isn't given. It's claimed, but what if claiming it cost her everything?" Maya left Davidson's office with no answers. Just the weight of silence and the certainty that she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. In her office, she sat in darkness as evening fell. The Martinez ruling lay open on her desk, Harrison's hypocrisy illuminated by streetlight. She'd started something she had to finish. There was no going back now. Maya filed the formal recusal motion at 6 a.m. the next morning. The courthouse clerk's eyes widened when she read the caption. "This is against Judge Harrison?" "Yes." Maya's voice was steady. She'd barely slept, but her resolve had crystallized in the darkness. The motion was 15 pages, single-spaced, every citation perfect. She'd attached Harrison's Martinez ruling as Exhibit A, his own words condemning his own actions. By noon, the legal blogs had picked up the story. Attorney files recusal motion against judge who questioned her competence. By 3 p.m., it was trending on legal Twitter. Attorneys across the state weighed in, some supportive, others critical. Maya's inbox flooded. But one email caught her attention immediately. The sender was Jennifer Walsh, an attorney from across the state. Subject line, "You're not alone." Maya opened it with trembling fingers. "Ms. Chen, I saw the news about your motion. 3 years ago, Judge Harrison did something similar to me in his courtroom. Questioned whether I'd passed the bar, dismissed my arguments without cause. I didn't have the courage to speak up. I'm ashamed I stayed silent. If you need witness statements for your motion, I'll testify." Maya stared at the screen. Her heart pounded. 2 more emails arrived within the hour. Then 5 more. Then a dozen, all attorneys, all women. Most of them Black, Latina, or Asian, all with stories about Harrison's courtroom. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't isolated behavior. It was systematic. Tanya burst into Maya's office. "Have you seen this?" She thrust her phone forward. A legal news article. Multiple attorneys come forward with complaints against Judge Harrison. Maya's motion had opened a floodgate. Years of suppressed complaints, swallowed indignities, silenced voices, all surfacing at once. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Maya answered cautiously. "Ms. Chen, this is Judge Patricia Moreno, supervising judge for the district." The voice was crisp, professional. "I'm calling about your recusal motion. We need to schedule an emergency hearing." Maya's breath caught. "When?" "Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. This matter requires immediate attention." "I'll be there, Your Honor." After hanging up, Maya sat motionless. Tomorrow morning everything would be decided. Her career, Marcus's case, maybe the accountability of the entire system. She pulled out Harrison's Martinez ruling one more time. Read his words about judicial integrity, attorney respect, the sacred duty of impartiality. He'd written those words 15 years ago. Meant them perhaps in that moment, but power had corrupted that principle. Made him forget his own standard, his own oath, Maya would remind him. Not with anger or vengeance, but with his own words. Tomorrow morning, Judge Richard Harrison would face his own precedent. The emergency hearing took place in the largest courtroom in the building. Every seat was filled. Attorneys, reporters, legal observers packed shoulder to shoulder. Judge Patricia Moreno presided, her silver hair pulled back severely, her expression giving nothing away. She was known as fair but unforgiving of impropriety. Maya sat at the petitioner's table, her emerald green blazer pressed and perfect. Across the aisle, Judge Harrison sat with his attorney, a high-powered defense lawyer named Marcus Blackwell. The irony of the name wasn't lost on Maya. Her client Marcus sat in the gallery with his mother, watching the proceedings that would determine his fate. "Ms. Chen," Judge Moreno began, "you filed a serious motion alleging judicial bias. Please present your arguments." Maya stood. Her notes trembled slightly in her hands, but her voice emerged clear and strong. "Your Honor, on the morning of October 8th, Judge Harrison questioned my law school credentials in open court without cause. He asked, and I quote, 'Did you actually attend law school?' Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Judge Moreno's expression hardened slightly. He denied my motions without explanation, interrupted my arguments repeatedly, suggested I defer to more experienced counsel, despite my Harvard Law degree and flawless case preparation. Maya pulled out the Martinez ruling. But most significantly, Your Honor, Judge Harrison violated his own published judicial standard. She approached the bench, offering copies to Judge Moreno and Harrison's attorney. In Martinez v. State Superior Court, decided in 2009, Judge Harrison wrote, "A judge who questions counsel's qualifications without legitimate cause undermines the very integrity of our justice system." Judge Moreno read the passage slowly. Her eyebrows rose fractionally. Maya continued, "He further stated that such behavior constitutes judicial misconduct." Those are his words, his standard, his precedent. The courtroom was absolutely silent, every eye fixed on Judge Harrison, whose face had gone pale. "Your Honor," Maya's voice strengthened, "I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the treatment Judge Harrison himself said all attorneys deserve. The treatment he defended 15 years ago." Harrison's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client's remarks were taken out of context. Ms. Chen is oversensitive." Oversensitive. Maya's voice cut through the room. "Since filing this motion, 12 other attorneys have come forward. 12 women of color who experienced similar treatment in Judge Harrison's courtroom." Gasps echoed through the gallery. Judge Moreno's eyes widened. Maya placed a folder on the bench. "I've submitted their sworn statements. A pattern of bias spanning years, all documented, all corroborated." Harrison finally spoke, his voice strained. "Your Honor, I've served on this bench for 15 years with distinction." "With distinction?" Maya turned to face him directly. "You wrote beautiful words about judicial integrity, about respecting attorneys, about the sacred duty of impartiality. And then you abandoned every principle you claimed to uphold." The room held its breath. "Why?" Maya's question hung in the air. "Why did you forget your own words? Why did you decide that some attorneys who look like me, don't deserve the respect you once defended?" Harrison had no answer. He sat frozen, his own precedent damning him from the bench. Judge Moreno set down the Martinez ruling. Her voice was cold as winter steel. "Mr. Harrison, I've read your motion in Martinez. I've read Ms. Chen's recusal motion. I've reviewed the sworn statements from 12 officers of this court." She paused, letting the weight settle. "The pattern is unmistakable. The hypocrisy is staggering." Harrison's attorney tried again. "For Your Honor, if we could have time to respond—" "No." Judge Moreno's gavel remained still, but her voice carried the force of one. "The evidence speaks clearly. Judge Harrison violated not only judicial ethics, but his own published standard of conduct." She looked directly at Harrison. "You wrote that such behavior undermines the integrity of our justice system. You were right. And you're guilty of exactly what you once condemned." The courtroom erupted. Reporters typed frantically. Attorneys whispered in amazement. Maya remained standing, steady as stone. Her grandmother's blazer felt weightless now, buoyant with vindication. Judge Moreno raised her hand for silence. "Judge Harrison, you are removed from the Thompson case immediately. I'm referring this matter to the Judicial Ethics Committee for formal investigation." Harrison's face crumbled. His attorney placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. "Furthermore," Moreno continued, "I'm ordering a review of all cases you've presided over in the past 5 years, with particular attention to treatment of minority counsel." Maya's eyes burned, but she refused to let tears fall. "Not here, not now, Ms. Chen," Judge Moreno said, her tone softening fractionally. "Your motion is granted. Your courage in bringing this matter forward is noted. Thank you, Your Honor." As the hearing concluded, Maya gathered her papers with shaking hands. Around her, attorneys approached to offer congratulations, support, solidarity. But Maya's eyes found Marcus in the gallery. The teenager was crying, his mother holding him tight. Justice, finally. Imperfect but real. The new judge assigned to Marcus Thompson's case was Judge Patricia Moreno herself. She heard Maya's suppression motion 3 days later. This time Maya presented her arguments without interruption. Every citation was considered. Every constitutional question addressed. Judge Moreno ruled from the bench. The evidence was obtained in clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. Ms. Chen's legal analysis is sound, thorough, and correct. The motion to suppress is granted. Without the tainted evidence, the prosecution's case collapsed. The charges against Marcus were dismissed that afternoon. Maya stood outside the courthouse as Marcus and his mother emerged. Mrs. Thompson grabbed Maya in a fierce embrace, tears streaming down both their faces. "Thank you," Mrs. Thompson whispered. "Thank you for fighting for my boy." Marcus hugged Maya next, his young arms strong with gratitude. "You saved my life, Miss Chen." Maya shook her head. "You saved your own life by staying strong." "I just made sure the system did its job." Her phone buzzed. "An email from the State Bar Association." Maya's heart clenched until she read the subject line, "Commendation for Judicial Accountability." The bar was recognizing her courage in filing the recusal motion. Several legal organizations wanted to honor her at upcoming events, but the recognition felt hollow compared to the sight of Marcus walking free, his scholarship intact, his future unshattered. Back at her office, Maya finally allowed herself to breathe. The Martinez ruling sat on her desk, a reminder that principles mattered, that words had weight. Robert Davidson appeared in her doorway. "The firm wants to promote you to senior associate, if you're interested." Maya looked at him surprised. "I thought I'd painted a target on our backs." "You did?" Davidson almost smiled. "Turns out it's the kind of target that attracts the right kind of attention. We've had 5 new clients this week, all because they heard about what you did." He left and Maya was alone with her thoughts. On her desk, beside the Martinez ruling, sat a photograph of her grandmother. Helena Chen's eyes seemed to sparkle with pride. Maya traced the frame with her finger. "I hope I made you proud, Grandma." Outside her window, the sun was setting over the city. Golden light painted everything in warm tones. The buildings, the streets, the courthouse steps where she'd almost given up. But she hadn't given up. She'd claimed her dignity, just as Eleanor had taught her. And in doing so, she'd reminded the system that its own principles mattered. That words on paper meant nothing unless backed by action. Justice was fragile. It required constant vigilance, constant courage. Maya Chen had found hers. And she'd use it again as many times as necessary for Marcus. For the 12 women who'd come forward. For every attorney who'd ever been silenced. For Eleanor, who'd taught her that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. 3 months later, Maya stood before a packed auditorium at the State Bar Conference. She'd been invited to speak about judicial accountability and attorney advocacy. The room was filled with young lawyers, eager and nervous, their faces reflecting her own journey. She saw herself in their eyes, the hope, the fear, the determination. "My grandmother taught me that dignity isn't given," Maya began. "It's claimed. Not through violence or vengeance, but through the courage to stand up when standing up costs everything." She told them about Marcus, about Harrison, about the moment she'd chosen to risk her career rather than accept injustice. "I was terrified," she admitted. "I thought I'd lose everything. My job, my reputation, my future. And I almost did." The audience leaned forward, hanging on every word. "But I learned something that day in that courtroom. The system's principles only matter when we enforce them, when we demand that those in power live up to the standards they set." Maya pulled out the Martinez ruling. She'd kept it, framed now, hanging in her office. Judge Harrison wrote beautiful words about justice and integrity. He meant them once. Then he forgot them, until someone reminded him, using his own precedent against him. She looked out at the young attorneys. Their faces shone with inspiration. "That's your job. Not just to practice law, but to protect it. To hold the system accountable to its own promises. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Maya thought of Eleanor, watching from wherever the brave go when they die. She thought of Marcus, now thriving at college. She thought of the 12 women who'd found their voices. The system won't fix itself. It needs people willing to speak up, stand firm, and fight for what's right, even when the cost is high. Her final words echoed through the auditorium, resonating with power and truth. Dignity isn't given. Justice isn't automatic. They're claimed through courage, protected through vigilance, and won through the simple act of refusing to stay silent. The audience rose in thunderous applause. But Maya wasn't thinking about recognition or awards. She was thinking about the next Marcus Thompson, the next attorney who'd face prejudice in a courtroom, the next battle in the endless fight for justice, and she was ready. Eleanor had prepared her well. Outside, the sun was setting again, another day ending, another beginning on the horizon. Maya walked toward it, her grandmother's emerald green blazer a shield, her spine straight, her purpose clear. Some battles are won with precedent, some with courage. The best ones are won with both. Maya Chen had learned that lesson well. And she'd teach it to anyone willing to listen, because dignity isn't given. It's claimed. One courageous stand at a time.